Hi, my name is Alla Abdunabi and this is my first solo exhibition at 421 titled Are Your Memories of Me Enough for You? The show considers object histories, icons and simulacra that persist on objects till contemporary culture. The first work that we encounter as we walk into the show is a sign that's a replica from the Natural History Museum in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, that was created alongside a taxidermy diorama that was displayed, titled A Lion Attacking a Man on a Dromedary. And so, of course, this is a fictional scene that was created by the Varro brothers and holds these racial depictions which were kind of noticed by the general public during kind of the Black Lives Matter movement. And so there became kind of a concern from the general public for its racial depiction and to the museum, who is continually displaying this work. And so in an effort to kind of please them, they create this sign that is essentially acknowledging its harmful impact. But in doing that, they also announce that they know that this diorama has human remains. From research of the Varro brothers in other taxidermies, we know that they used to dig up indigenous people's graves in order to use them for their taxidermy. And so here we really think about the way that the Barbary lion and the brown body, the North African body, are treated the same, both historically and in contemporary culture. So the next work that we see when we first walk into the show are these 4 paintings. They're oil paint on wood panel, and this is called Delacroix's Foreign Bodies. Essentially, the paintings are really interrogating Delacroix's original depiction of the Barbary lion. So he became very interested in the Barbary lions around the same time as the Varro brothers in the 19th century, and he would go to Morocco and kind of sketch these lions and then go back and create these fictional scenes that were kind of these chaotic paintings of these lions once again attacking native people. And so what I did here is I extracted those postures from his original paintings and I induce a stillness. I have these sleeping bodies that are kind of engulfed by these aggressive postures. And so here we're really thinking about looking at these lions with a tenderness and with empathy, and thinking about them sleeping or resting or kind of allowed to do so. And we really think about, once again, the body and the lion's body as equal here. And if we move along here, we are faced with a much smaller work. This is actually my baby tooth, a container that my dad used to keep them in. My dad had this kind of practice of keeping all of his children's baby teeth filed and labeled and stacked in these tin cans. I take that gesture of care, and place my tooth in this can once again, but with a laser cut mirror underneath. And so you really see the tooth and its reflection. And here we're really thinking about the object and the icon, the memories that these objects hold to us. And so we're really thinking about the object and the folly, the real and the imagined, the facts and fiction. And this is kind of a constant theme that we see throughout the show, where I'm really playing with the real and the imagined, and presenting or representing narratives that exist today, and then kind of shifting or changing parts of them to really question what we know to be real and what we understand as the status quo, or this concept of simulacra in that sense. This is the largest work in the show. This is titled Yet I Endured for You. It's an extension of the title, Are Your Memories of Me Enough for You? And Yet I Endured for You. Consist of salt sculptures installed on a bed of salt. So these sculptures are made entirely out of salt, and so they are site-specific works that exist only for the period of the show. And essentially here, once again, I'm thinking about portraying these lions as sleeping, and I kind of created these postures of these resting, sleeping lions, and thinking about the ways that in monument and in taxidermy, in these kind of objects that are created that are representations of this lion, that it is not left to rest. And so in the show, I think about the Barbary lion in 3 ways. I think about the painting, I think about the monument, and I think about the taxidermy in its 3 depictions of its immortal existence. And so while the Barbary lion has become extinct, its objects and its visual representations continue to live on. And so the show is really thinking about recreating or producing new representations of its body and thinking about how even those are inaccurate representations of itself. They are made of this soul which is able to hold itself but also can crumble and can return to its original form. And so at the closing of the show, you know, once we lift it, it will crumble in our hands. And so there's this kind of ghostly manner in which these lions exist in this space. And it's really thinking about creating these objects, but understanding that these objects are not representations of their real bodies or their real existence. And so you can see on each side they are these kind of exhausted lions, and I create these almost purposely inaccurate postures that a lion perhaps could never actually morph and bend in that way. And again, it's thinking about these inaccurate representations within history. So even within taxidermy, through those representations, we can see these inaccuracies. And so it really tells about the ways that the icon of the lion has actually superseded the mortal body of the lion, perhaps. So the next work that we kind of encounter is on this large wall. These are essentially piped with icing bags. And so they're these kind of reliefs, almost sections of facades that I produce. They're almost an image of a ruin, but you can see in the ways that they're produced the inaccuracies or the moments of failure with the material. This work is really thinking about the laborious act of producing a beautiful object. What does it mean for an object to be beautiful, but also to be born out of aggression at the same time? The ways that we, as a contemporary culture, understand and live with these beautiful objects is also telling of the deception within which history utilizes this craft and this form. And so here I really hone in on kind of the labor, this kind of intensive labor that I go under to produce concrete as something delicate, to deceive you into thinking that concrete can become delicate and can become soft and can you know, evoke beauty in a sense, in an effort to kind of replicate these monuments that exist on our lands today. And it's also kind of a witty, once again, response to the way that we think about kind of icing a cake, you know, fixing the mistakes or covering up with this beautiful facade. And so it's really, once again, me kind of bringing the domestic to the public, you know, the private to the political. And it's really kind of the ways that I'm thinking about how what we do in our private space is often a reflection of what exists in the public space. And so you'll see that quite a lot in the show through the techniques that I use, but also through the materials like the salt. Once again, a domestic material that here is being used to produce a monument. And so there becomes this relationship between the personal and the political. Something else I always, you know, do and is a big part of my practice is playing the role of the aggressor. And this is very evident here in particular. The ways that I interrogate these histories is often through mimicking or using the same aggressions that was once imposed on these objects. And so I create these new objects produced out of those same techniques in order to interrogate those histories, in order to understand and also re-represent those objects to you again. And this is something that I did in particular here. The show kind of ends with this work, which is titled Love That Reassembles Fragments. And this is actually, they are ceramic slabs, once again reliefs, which on the surface casts of my baby teeth. And so in these original tin cans that we saw at the beginning of the show, my father used to keep a lot of my baby teeth, and so it wasn't just that one, but here I actually activate all of the teeth that he kept of mine. And so I create these replicas of the teeth, and then I rearrange them and then display them publicly. And so it's really thinking about these processes of selective extraction, of public public display, of removal, of reorganization of fragments that we see persist in history in order to create, you know, certain narratives or new narratives. And so I employ those techniques once again and represent myself to you and re-represent my icons to you, and let you sit with it. And so, you know, this work really kind of comes back to that first sign that we saw, thinking about what it means to display human remains, thinking about the ways that the object, the icon, persist in contemporary culture as they have in history, and how we begin to build new relationships with these objects.